A one and a two and a chick-a-boom a chick.
Welcome, listeners. I actually, good marketing and good sales work and good relationship building is when you're just talking to one other person. So actually, welcome, listener. I'm speaking specifically to you, listener. I can only imagine who you are. Podcast stats don't really show me. I know how many of you are out there typically, that listen to episodes, but you are most likely a remodeler somewhere across the fruited plains of the United States of America. And I have a feeling that you are juggling financials, marketing, sales. Do I grow my team? Do I not? How do I make sure I'm proactively planning projects? How am I proactively scheduling? How am I dealing with challenges that pop up? It's time to just take a breath. You are going to have plenty of working in your business, but it's a little time to work on your business, to hear some new ideas, to hear some new, fresh ideas. And hopefully that is why you tune in to the Remodelers on the Rise show. It is an honor to have you as a listener. It's also an honor to have Rob Fisher with Fisher Custom Builders in beautiful Madison, Wisconsin. How is that for a Wisconsin accent, Rob?
A little thick, but sometimes accurate.
A little thick, yes. You guys definitely go ahead.
We're a university town. We're like we're still like a Wisconsin town, but we're not like Central Wisconsin, Wausau. That's where the accent is thick.
I mean, even the name of the city is just begging you to kind of get that accent out there.
Yeah.
So how do you pronounce it? And then if you were from that area and you were really laying it on, how would you pronounce it?
I think, yeah. So I grew up in Missouri, right? So I got a solid, super neutral Bob Costas, like relatable to anybody. Supposedly is the accent, but I just say Madison, Wisconsin. My mom claims that I've gotten a little bit of we've been up here a decade now, a little bit more of a nasally dialect now that we've been in the upper Midwest for a decade. And every once in a while she's like, you used to not talk like that. But
who else do you like to compare yourself to? You just compared yourself to the Emmy Award winning legendary sportscaster Bob Costas. Who else do you like to compare yourself to?
Oh man. Well, in this realm, so speaking of dialect specifically, so there's a theory that most like news anchors and sportscasters are from like Illinois, the Midwest, the central Midwest. So like Tom Brokaw's South Dakota, Bob Costas, I think it's St. Louis, I want to say. But anyways, so it's
I'm not going to fact check you, but he was born in New York City.
Apologize.
It's okay. It's okay.
We can anyways, all I'd say, comparison wise, I don't know.
That's a good comparison. You do have a very peaceful voice. We're looking forward to hearing it as you share your story. This is just a Remodeler on the Rise episode where we want to hear kind of how you started, how you got into business, where you've been the last number of years, where you are currently, and kind of where you're going, and share just some of the lessons and things that you've learned along the way. Because the chances are there's a lot of folks listening to this that will be able to relate and also maybe hear a nugget or two that they can take and actually implement into their business. So far, I know Missouri upbringing. I know 10 years ago moved up to Madison. Fill in a little bit more about who you are and how you got to where you're at.
Yeah. So grew up Southwest Missouri. Went to college down there, met my wife, started dating into our senior year at college down there. And really the post college trajectory for me, I thought I would go into ministry, church planting. And so somebody told me, kind of near the end of college, they're like, do an internship, kind of work in that field before you do 3 years of seminary graduate school. And then it's like, you've never actually worked in it. You don't know what it's like. And so all that to say, we graduated college, we got engaged like a month later, got married New Year's Eve. And then we moved up to Madison. We did an internship with the church up here. So that's how we landed in Madison. And I did an internship with the church for that first year. And really 9 months into it, I was like, Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do this full time. Now my job right after, so the 6 months after I graduated college and before we got married and moved up here, I worked for a family owned and operated fishing resort in Branson, Missouri. And it was amazing. It was a ton of fun, and owned by just an incredibly godly family, great folks. They'd worked super hard for it, but the owner, so this is like their 30th year in business or so. And the main guy, Phil Lilly, that owned it, he still owns it.
Shout out Phil Lilly.
Shout out to Phil. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but they were so good to me.
Rob, you're going to continue on. I'm not going to interrupt your story too much, but that is a moment right there. Long time since you've reached out to Phil Lilly. I think in the next coming week, you are going to reach out to him and share what you just started to share, which was they did a lot for me and they were wonderful people. Yeah. Because everyone listening to this, when something like that happens, you think of somebody, do not sit on it. If you are prompted, now I'm prompting you, I'm kind of forcing you to reach out, but do not be shy about reaching out to folks, because sometimes they need to hear what you're going to say. We save all of the beautiful, nice things for when somebody, maybe even somebody passes or for their eulogy. Right. Let this be a reminder to actually think about people that have been very meaningful in your life and let them know that. Okay, sorry, Rob, to interrupt. I just had to get that out there.
No, you're good. So
Phil Lilly.
So he ran the resort with his wife and kids. His office was on the dock. He fished, I think, 330 days a year. Walked out to his boat, and then he also he fished in Alaska, like 2 weeks in May and 2 weeks in October. And like kind of young, impressionable Rob, I was like, man, this guy, they've crafted an incredible life. Like they have an amazing business. People love coming there. He fishes a ton, which was appealing to me. His kids work for him. His family works for him. He's generous. He was incredibly generous to me as just a young college graduate. And that was like I kind of had some entrepreneurial seeds planted, but that really that was a lot of fuel for me to be an entrepreneur. It was like, and again, this was 30 years of super hard work. It was, if you talk to Phil and Marcia, who own it, it was well earned and hard earned. But yeah, so that was, we had kind of already had these plans to do the church internship, but that entrepreneurial seed was just like, my time at Lily's Landing was really foundational for kind of the next trajectory. So, all that to say, we did the internship with the Red Village Church for a year. Then I tried to sell insurance for 3 years and just did not love it. It was an entrepreneurial opportunity, again, to be a State Farm agent. Learned a lot, wasn't a good fit. And, kind of through that whole time, we were a DIY family. My dad was a full-time electrician for a while. My grandpa was a general contractor, carpenter. And so I was pretty good on the tools, and I was just always watching as much This Old House as I could. And I was like, man, I really want to get back into that. So
I hate to interrupt again, but Lily, you were talking about Lily, Cassie and Bailey, you know what I'm about to say. I want to talk and interview somebody from This Old House. And we have tried a little bit. We need to keep trying, ladies. Okay, carry on. Who do you think? Who would you most want me to interview, Rob? Who's your favorite?
Jeff Sweener. He's he's based out of Iran. He's we're going to talk a little bit later, kind of about unknown mentors, and he's done a handful of podcasts, kind of long form, and you look at the guy now, he's got an incredible business. I think he's got 70 employees or so as a residential construction company, which is just
amazing.
It's crazy. But, at one point he became it's just some interview. He was like, at one point I had to become a part-time firefighter, 5 to 8 years in, just because I couldn't figure out how to
make it all happen.
Company. And so, but no, Jeff Sweener, I'm super impressed with, from what I can tell,
So you're DIYing, you were watching every This Old House you could, and finally decided it was time.
Yeah. So I just got a job as a carpenter. So I worked for a remodeling company for 6 months. Then I worked for a high-end custom home builder here in Madison, framing for about a year. It was incredible. Framing custom homes was great education for me. So I loved that. It was a great company. And then after that, I was looking for kind of management opportunities. So I took a job managing production homes like tract housing. So I managed somewhere between 8 to 15 new builds at a time for a couple of years. And that was, learned a lot about management and building homes, but it was a hard place to work. I came 6 months into that job. I came home one day and I told my wife, I was like, I don't think I can do this for any more than 3 years. And then I quit after 2. So, so at the end of those 2 years, I was 30 at the time. That's when I started Fisher Custom Builders. So that was about 3 years exactly. So it was summer 2022 is when I went on my own.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So the interesting path together. You mentioned 2 things in there that I think was important. One of the lilies you were talking about of, they put in work for 30 years. Like they built that. It wasn't always, you saw maybe the culmination of all of those, right, of all those side. And then even what you were sharing about the gentleman from this old house of going, I was listening to podcasts the other day, and even 6 or 8 years in, he was still trying to figure things out. He was hustling on the side, bringing in income. I think it's a better perspective to have, or it's a good balanced perspective to have, where in today's social media highlight reel, everything's so easy, and in our instant gratification culture that's telling us, hey, you deserve to be happy right from you start and you're going to be a millionaire. It's a good reminder that building a business from scratch is really, really hard work. It takes time. It takes brick by brick by brick. Remodelers on the Rise isn't, you're not Remodelers on the Rise and it's like, zoom, I'm up at the top. Right. It takes a lot of time and energy and effort and knowledge and implementation. So you kind of gave those 2 examples, and I think it's a good example. Although in your case, you're 3 years in and you've built the thing that you've wanted to build and everything's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah. So I have no stresses. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's just smooth as can be.
Yeah.
I did hear from one of my employees here that you may have taken a day off yesterday, though.
I did, which is kind of when I was a new home superintendent, it was like, there was literally, we had planned a trip to Western Michigan, like we were going to leave Friday morning, and I was just like, I just couldn't. Like I sent Rachel and we just had 2 boys at the time. I said, you guys have to go a day ahead of me. I'll come a day later. And like, I missed a lot of dinners when I was a superintendent. And now, I still work a lot now owning the business, but I can at least control the schedule. So, that is one of the benefits is like, we've been looking at the weather in Sheboygan for 2 months, really trying to find a good middle of the week beach day. And, it worked out this time. And so
way to make that happen. That's also another takeaway for people listening. We got all kinds of takeaways so far and reminders, but we start our businesses not so that our businesses can run us and control our lives, but so that we can design the life that we want. And even that, like, there's always going to be work to do. You have to strategically decide, you know what? I do own my business and I do work hard, but I also do have the flexibility to perhaps take a day off in the middle of a beautiful summer Tuesday. Let that be inspiration for you. So as you started your business over the last 3 years, what are some of the things that are hard lessons you've learned or things that you've really been implementing that have been helpful kind of along your journey as you're getting things going?
Yeah, I think I was telling another entrepreneur, he has a tree business. I said, I think it really took me 2 years to figure out how much to charge, like what my margin should be. And I feel like that really kind of after the first 6 months to a year, I felt like there's like a children's story, like, Are You My Mama? Where this like animal goes to all different kinds of animals and it's, Are you my mama? And I felt like I was that going to anybody who would ask, or I could ask. It was like, how much should I charge? How much should I charge? What are the I knew I could execute at a high level, but I was like, so what are the high executing remodelers and builders charging? And, kind of the war story on this, the first job I ever bid and estimated, it was a bathroom. And I told him, I was like, hey, I think I can do this for $40,000. I did the actual numbers and labor and materials came to it was like 37,000 or something like that. And so I calculated my margin on that. It was 5%.
Mm-hmm.
And then the down payment to order all the material was like $15,000, $20,000, something like that. I did not disable credit card payments, and credit cards take 3%. And so that first, we'll call it $17,000, my margin went from 5 to 2%. So,
and that's if everything goes well.
That's exactly right. So I was still swinging the hammer on that one. So I was like, well, we made it at the end of the day. But that was that's where we started from. And then we've kind of been like slowly ratcheting that up and ratcheting that back up. And, connecting with you, Kyle, we've had multiple conversations just saying like, hey, the most successful remodelers are, they're going to be between, they're really around 25% gross profit margin or higher. The best ones are like 30 or higher. And then, so that was an important, big learning step for me. And then also I took a day off last September, I think. There's another coaching group that he'll kind of go around the nation and do like these 1-day workshops. And then he'll kind of, as a springboard to sell like these 6-month intensives.
Okay.
But it was just a morning. All he talked about was gross profit margins, like 3 to 4 hours in some nondescript conference room outside of Milwaukee, just like drinking from a fire hose of gross profit margin. And that, I think I paid $300 for that. I would have paid $3,000. It was like, I left that just with 10 times the confidence about what I needed to charge moving forward. And that gave me just a lot of, just a really strong base for just having an actual profitable company.
Yeah. I remember us talking, so Rob's been part of the VIP club for last couple of years. I remember us having conversations around that gross profit margin. As you even shared that story of that project, I remember that one, or ones that are similar to that, where it's like, well, I'm trying to price it this way and I'm trying to price it that way. And there was kind of all kinds of different things you were trying out. To go back to kind of the numbers you just quoted, there's a lot of variables when it comes to gross profit margin. If you put all of your project management up into cost of goods sold, that changes things. If you're self-performing the work, that's going to change your gross profit margin and your cost of goods sold versus your overhead. There's a lot of factors there. And the thing I've been saying more and more is like, okay, you're trying to run a professional remodeling company. You're starting to get some overhead. You're starting to maybe even hire an office person. Maybe you have some rent going on. You're investing in some coaching or some marketing efforts. Yeah, you better be at 30% gross profit margin and kind of going up from there. Right. Is kind of at least the starting line of going that direction. And if you're at 18% gross profit margin, if you're at 22% gross profit margin, that can feel like, oh, how do I get there? At the same time, most likely if you're down there, you're also sitting there going, where's the money? I am working so hard. Like one thing goes wrong and it eats into that, or you're kind of like what you were describing of like, I kind of know what markup is and margin is, and then just really solidifying that. When you get super clear with that, all of a sudden your confidence level, which is half the battle in what you charge, went way up. Cool.
Yeah. And just to build off that, like 2024, the calendar year it was a pretty high revenue year just based off 2 jobs. We had a big lake house remodel and I had a small commercial remodel, and that those 2 jobs probably accounted for almost 800,000 in revenue.
Wow.
But I was doing a very poor version of the COPE model. And yeah, at the end of the year, I was like, wow, I managed a lot of work, and we barely got by.
Yeah.
We survived. But yeah, kind of at the end of the year, it was like, that failure, so to speak, of gross profit margin just gave me a ton of confidence for selling in this year, of just saying like, hey, this is what I got to charge, and we're going to do a great job. But and the other thing I'll tell customers, I say like, hey, I'm charging to build a business and run a business. Like, there's tons of guys out here who I think are general contractors or independent, and they're self-employed, and they just make enough to they pay themselves maybe well.
Kind of a glorified job.
Yeah, but like to actually build a business, something of value that I could hand off to my sons, or a business in the eyes of the world that can like operate without me. It's like there's like 20% gross profit margin is a joke. Like,
yes. Yep.
So
it's interesting where you kind of went there of going, what have you been implementing, or where has kind of the growth happened in your first 3 years? You immediately went to financials, to understanding your numbers, to understanding cost of goods sold versus gross profit margin versus overhead versus net profit, understanding where you need to be in that, learning some hard lessons there. And that's a good reminder. If you're listening to this and you're murky with your financials, if you're murky with how all of that's going and you're kind of avoiding it, you need to lean into it. You need to learn those skills and that knowledge to kind of unlock your ability to be more profitable. What are some of the other things that you've kind of been implementing that have kind of made a good, solid difference and improvement?
Yeah, so I think just kind of going back to last year, I really had to sell like 2 jobs, and it brought in a ton of revenue, which I was grateful for. But I've needed to, and I'm still working on it, is dialing in the sales process. And really for me, it's, coming from being a superintendent, I was never doing any estimating, right? Like I can do it, but like I was all schedule management, quality control, field management. So having to kind of manage a sales process and do estimating it still is a hard learning curve for me. So really what I've done recently is, the main sales tracking number that I'm kind of doing myself is I want to release like $100,000 a week, at least, in, we'll call it rough proposals, or I'll call it a suggested construction budget, an SCB. And so that's my board. I just moved offices. I don't have the board up now, but there's a quarterly tracker, and it basically says, weekly pace, this week could be 100,000. And then, SCBs released so far, and then if I'm ahead or behind on that pace. And so that's been a big step for me. Now my sales process can definitely improve a lot, but I'm just trying to look at like, what's the next immediate step that I need to be kind of holding myself accountable to, weekly chipping away at, in order to improve that sales process.
And that's pushing you probably on the marketing side to generate more opportunities. And it's also pushing you on the early sales process of going, let's turn this around a little bit. Let's meet with them. Let's get a handle on it. Let's give them kind of that suggestion, and then go from there. And then when you're going from there, are you aiming towards some design and project development work, or even kind of a cost for that, or how are you approaching that?
That's my next phase too. I've been kicking the tires on that, and that's.
Oh, don't talk about tires. I dropped my wife's car off at Bell Tire. I glanced over at my text because it was popping up, and here's what the text says from my Bell Tire guy, which I appreciate. He's texting me. Hi Kyle, I left you a voicemail regarding your tire condition. I emailed over some tire options for you to review. In other words, pretty sure we're going to buy some new tires for the old Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
So kicking the tires on that a little bit, but you're moving towards that.
And that's really the lesson, like, kind of back to the lesson of like getting your margins at the right spot. It's like, I need to be slowly implementing, as much as I can, realistically towards what the most successful construction companies are doing. Right. And it's like, we're going to deliver at the same level. And so why not be charging for that? So no, that is, that's been on my radar. And
I have a feeling you're going to test that out and you're going to put that into practice yet this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Good. All right. So in the, I think that mindset's pretty good. And it's interesting. I've been playing with these bars in my mind a little bit of like these different Like if I said, okay, Rob, we'll go ahead and rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, 1 being low, on your ability to produce a beautiful project. You would probably say what?
10.
10, right? You're confident there. It's where your experience was. I built custom homes. I built tract homes. I like framed. I've done that. I know that's very high. When it comes to your understanding of financials, I think you'd probably say, man, it used to be a 2. Now it's like a 6 or 7. And then what you just mentioned there on the sales process is like your confidence level as far as charging for design and project development. I think even through the VIP club and examples, you understand the concept of it. You understand how it works, why it works. You've kind of sold yourself on it, but you'd probably give yourself kind of a 3 out of 10 on understanding it. And it's one of those of like, all right, I gotta pull the details together. I gotta practice my pitch of it. And man, once you get one in front of somebody, let alone they sign off on the agreement for it, your confidence level with it goes up really high and really fast. And again, for everybody listening, when we start charging for design and project development, it allows us to put so much more time, effort, detail, selections up front on the project, and it has such a positive ripple effect. The production goes so much smoother. Everything goes so much smoother. The client experience is better. So let this moment be a little not kick to the tires, but kick to the old rear end, Mr. Right. Fisher, to give that a shot.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? They throw it back and crumple it up and throw it back at you?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, the design development fee, that is the only one where I'm like, you know what? If you want to take a credit card because you've got QuickBooks set up or Job Chart set up or whatever, go ahead and take a credit card on that one just because, man, they're saying yes, grab it. But we don't need to be taking credit cards on, 20,000 this, 30,000 this, 40,000 this. Or a 5% margin project and down payment. But we've learned that lesson already. That hurt. But thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. You're being vulnerable. You're sharing not only some of the good stuff, but also some of the things you worked through. That's encouraging to the people.
Yeah. There's a Eric Church song called Lessons I Wish I Wouldn't Have Learned the Hard Way. And I think that's like, that's the story of my autobiography. It's
do you want to sing that song for us?
I better not. I would do it with a lot of enthusiasm. I don't think I do it with much tonality.
The fact that you even said tonality, though, kind of makes me feel like you got some musical skills inside you. All right.
I think
next time.
I think there'd be a lot of people that would argue otherwise, but
But when people listen to the podcast, they make it so easy to kind of like click through, and skip forward.
That's right.
So they could always skip forward. Which, by the way, once you all listen to this little podcast commercial that I've got for you from a lovely sponsor of ours, and do not click that little skip. Listen to it. It's probably me talking, and I'm probably speaking passionately about it. Go ahead and listen to this commercial. Have you ever hung around a group of people and at the end of the night said, you know what, that actually gave me energy versus draining your energy? That's what you can expect at the RISE conference. Yes, at the end of the day, you might be a little bit tired, but it's going to be a good tired because you're going to be filled with relationship. You're going to be filled with ideas. Your mind is going to be buzzing with inspiration on how you can continue to improve your remodeling business. Not only that, but I'm excited that the friendships that will either start or strengthen through the RISE conference will be happening in a meaningful way. Our RISE conference is coming up on August 5th and 6th. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very focused and intentional. We've got a lot of wonderful things planned, and there's going to be a great group of remodelers coming in from around the country, maybe around the world. I don't know who's going to sign up, but for sure, across the fruited plains, you want to be there. Join us. All right, welcome back, people who didn't skip through that. Never, ever skip through Remodelers on the Rise sponsors. We need to support them. And they're also, I only take on sponsors that really have helped other clients of mine. So please do. It's not, is it patronize? Not patronize. Parcher? What's the word?
I think patronize.
Patronize. Oh, Bailey just hopped up. Because patronize sounds like...
there's a negative and a positive, I think.
Interesting. Yeah. That is. It's exact same pronunciation, whether you're Michigan or Wisconsin or whatnot. And Bailey... I don't know how often you come out of producer mode and unmute like that, but I think that should be a more regular occurrence. Oh, she's quiet.
It's like Jamie.
No, it was a one-time.
Joe Rogan over there.
What'd you say, Bailey? Oh, I'm sorry. And
Ah,
so, we can only hear her as the wow.
can you
Well,
pull that
Bailey,
up,
help.
Jamie?
Even more
So,
so, you should do that because you could just be in my ear saying, Kyle, that was stupid. Move on. You could do all kinds of stuff. All right, fair enough. So we're back. We're back. What's one other thing that's been pretty integral in how you've been implementing something new? We talked about pricing, financials, we talked about sales process and that side of things. What's one other thing? And then I'm going to move the conversation into a little different direction.
yeah. So this summer we have two projects. There's a bathroom and a laundry room, and there's also a kitchen. And the kitchen job, I line itemed. I just put field project management. So just trying to get myself out of project management. Probably, I really only swung the hammer for 6 months, 9 months or so when I started the business. And I was very fortunate, had a couple of contacts of guys who are independent general contractors, but they probably just want to do smaller jobs. So, I can kind of bring them in as carpenters, and they're all smart and talented enough to run their own jobs. And so this kitchen job, we took one of those guys, we kind of put him in a lead carpenter role. And really that first week of the project, it was like, I don't have to go to the job site. Like I can just stay in the office, which is kind of bittersweet. I love being in the field. But there's just times where like I got to be estimating, got to be running the business, marketing. There's it seems like 200 other things to do. But that was, and it went well. And I think it went well because we we signed the contract and we started like 2 to 3 months later, give or take. And then we got the schedule lined up in advance, got the project manager lined up in advance, and before. We had been in discussion, but the day before that the project started, it's just a small kitchen. It's not a huge job, but we met on site. We handed over all the documents. We had a good designer on board. And really that, I can still remember when I took the tool belt off and I had two jobs going and I was like, this is, it's this feeling of like, oh, this business is operating without me. And that's kind of the next level. When we handed off project management, it was like, oh, this project is getting managed without me. Like the designer can call Dave, and if there's any issues, his technical knowledge is already tenfold mine. So like, I have complete confidence he can figure it out. And so that's
it's been a big unlock.
Oh man, massive. And so I'm excited to keep building that.
Yeah.
That rollout and be able to kind of step away. But it's bittersweet. It's good for the business. I love being in the field with the guys. But it is necessary to grow the business.
Yeah. And there's different ways to go about it. Some people, there is an option of, what, maybe I need to hire a salesperson / estimator. Maybe I need to, take that side and find somebody to do that role versus, somebody to take care of more of the production manager, because I love the smell of sawdust in the morning. There's options there. At the same time, the route that you're going does not mean that that's how it always has to be. Right. And it's also the route that is probably the easiest, least risky route for you to go at this juncture in a younger company. They're able to do that. You're able to continue to work on the back end of things, on the office side, on the sales side, on the marketing side, of the estimating side. There's still plenty for you to do. And as you build out this business, you'll have the opportunity to go, you know what? I think I'm going to take this chunk of work, this estimating work. I'm going to find a solution for that. And you may find yourself with the ability to, be out in the field a little bit more. Don't lose sight of that. It is bittersweet. And sometimes, like you said, I need to do that for the good of the business. But that doesn't mean that has to be how it always goes. I know a lot of remodelers who have really built out their team, and Thursdays they're in the field with their tool belt on because everything else is taking care of it. And it turns out that time is life-giving for them, but it's also an amazing time for training and culture building. Training's always an Achilles heel for so many remodelers. So I'm just planting that seed. 72 years from now, Rob, you'll be able to get back out in the field. Don't worry about it. Right. Building a business takes time.
And you're exactly right, Kyle. I think it was, those are just the people and the talents that were kind of available to me at this point. Like, if I'm trying to find that sales estimator, like I would be, there's another builder in the Dane County area that I've talked to that has brought somebody on, and he said that same thing. He's like, this was one of the most impactful hires I'd ever made.
And the gentleman you brought on is a lead carpenter, where he's truly a lead carpenter, where he's swinging the hammer and he's managing the project.
Yep.
Right. So when we also think about that from a remodeling standpoint, that is a much less risky hire as well. He's eating up some of those cost of goods sold dollars. He's eating up some of that labor dollars that you may have been handing off to a trade partner. So it's not like I'm grabbing a purebred $80,000 a year plus estimator straight up overhead. I'm grabbing a project manager who is also, 50% project manager, 50% swinging the hammer. So it's for where you're at, and a lot of remodelers listening to this, that allows you to kind of take that, full next step forward without it being as risky.
Yep.
So that's good. Wonderful. You mentioned earlier unknown mentors, and then I wanted to ask you about this calendar. Bailey texted me and said, "Say big butt calendar," so that we don't have to mark the podcast episode explicit. Yes. So I will let you guys, it starts with an A, and we'll let you guys Google it. But tell me about those two topics, and then tell me about where you're taking your business and what you're excited about.
Yeah, I'll start off with the mentors, and maybe known and unknown. I think just in general, like throughout life, I've noticed like I've always been able to kind of identify somebody who's at a point where I want to be, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the future, and just say, hey, what did you do to get there? And so super grateful for that. And I can just think of multiple opportunities that I've gotten just through just literally cold calling people. Like, there's in Dane County here, there's Randy Martin Building and Design. He's doing pretty high end spec houses and custom homes. And, he's old enough to be my dad, but we had some friends who built a home with him, and they're like, man, he's an awesome guy. Incredible. And I was just like, can I get his number? And I just called him. And that was a couple of years ago when I first started. Talked to him for probably half an hour, 45 minutes. And then just probably a couple months ago, I had lunch with him. But it was the same thing. I just cold called him. I was like, hey, you built for Ben and Masha. They loved you. Can I buy you lunch? He's like, yeah. So, and
that's a great reminder of people, and that, at the end of that, I think happens 7, 8, maybe even 9 times out of 10. Successful people, when people reach out, they're truly expressing, some gratitude. And I'd love to just understand a little bit about your journey. Can I buy you lunch? As long as you can count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and be brave enough to make the call, more times than not, it's going to end in a happy story like you just mentioned, which I can only imagine some of the insights that you've gotten, especially through the recent lunch or just the confidence building.
Yeah. I mean, and even kind of back to your point of like the journey of building a company, Randy, this guy, just went through wars. Like it seems like multiple, and building the company he's at now. And, he told me, he's like, Rob, he's like, try to make a profit in your first 5 years. So he's like, but if you don't, and you're still surviving, but you've built an incredible reputation over those 5 years, he's like, you're set. He's like, so just, and I kind of need that. I need to hear that a lot of like, because I'm impatient. Like I'm always looking at the next horizon, the next mountaintop, and how do I get there? And I'm mad at myself because I'm not there yet. But so that was a great.
And it's interesting that Mr. Impatient has shared with the listeners listening to this 3 times examples of be patient. So you just need to start practicing what you're preaching. Yeah, practice what you're preaching.
Yeah, it's like, and even kind of in that same vein of mentors known and unknown. I look at, I mentioned Jeff Sweener Builders in Rhode Island, and then there's another kind of big AFT construction, Brad Levitt. He's in Scottsdale, Arizona. I think I think their average new home cost is like in 10 to 20 million. I mean, it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
But I was listening to his podcast just a couple of days ago. He was like, 5 years into the business, he's like, I wasn't sure that anybody could have a profitable residential construction company. He's like, I wasn't sure it was possible.
Yeah.
So it's like, I just have to, it's one of the lessons I have to
Continually learn.
Yeah, and at times I handle it better than others, but
Yeah, and comparison can be very encouraging. It can also, like old Teddy Roosevelt said, be the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And then another phrase that kind of ties along with what you're saying there of just, don't put all of your hope and all of your joy and all of your excitement on this finished picture of your business. When I get to there, everything will be great. It's just a recipe for disappointment. So this idea of enjoy the journey of where you're at, enjoy the journey, reflect on how far you've already come. Let that be an encouragement. And if you see somebody further along, then be excited for them and just learn from them. Don't get down in the doldrums. It's silly for us sometimes as business owners. I see this a lot of like, well, look at, they're charging this and they're doing that. They've got 15 more years in business than you. You think
Right.
15 years from now, you're not going to be closer to them? That's a great perspective to have.
Yeah.
But our minds and our egos and our fragileness, I'll speak for myself, can cause you to just get all bent out of shape and I'm not doing enough. No. Put your shoulders back. Keep working.
Yeah.
Who's
Sure.
another known or unknown? What's one more mentor? I feel like you had one more on your tip of your tongue.
Yeah, I mean, I had, I got great parents. My dad's always kind of, if I need a encouragement or a kick in the butt, kind of, his favorite line is "Let the journey be the destination," and
There you go.
it's just kind of like he's been a good, constant source of encouragement for me. So super grateful. I would be remiss if I didn't mention him.
And the way he just said it, that was more elegant than the way I said it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then what's this big butt calendar thing that I've seen behind you? It's not behind you today, but what is that about?
Yeah. So it's produced by Jesse Itzler, and just kind of speaking to entrepreneurs and like having the business serve your life and your family rather than your life and your family serving your business. He's an incredible entrepreneur. He's done a lot of cool things, but he does a lot with his family. And so it's just your year on one, I guess it's like 3x4 board. And so there's different color codes you can put on it. And so, it just helps me kind of see the big picture. Like the big picture is always in my head. Like, if there's a greatest strength and weakness, mine might be like I can see 10 years ahead more clearly than I can see 10 days ahead sometimes, right? So I have to you have to steward that well, right? That can be helpful. Like I have a very clear vision of where I want to go, but I just have to like kind of put it down once, and then you just have to set that aside because it's like, well, you still got work to do right now,
right? Right.
So yeah, no, I love the calendar. I've got two of them. I got one that's kind of all, personal, like big business stuff. And then the other one is really specifically for like, what am I working on the business? And I try to kind of plot that out and say like, hey, these are this week, this is the big work on the business thing that I need to tackle.
Good. And then tell us kind of what this vision in the future is. What are you looking towards?
Yeah. Really,
and do it in your best Bob Costas voice. Oh wait,
right.
You just have to keep talking like you normally do.
That's right. No, I want the company to be, first and foremost, a great place for somebody to have a career. We started this podcast talking about Lily's Landing. It was, on its face, it's a very simple mom and pop fishing resort in Branson, Missouri, but they have impacted, a million or more people, I'm sure at this point, between guests and employees. And so that's kind of always been the true north, is like create something that's going to be a great career for talented carpenters, and whoever else we need in the world. But so that's, I'd love to get to the point where, I'll probably build out it seems to me like the next logical step is to kind of build out the lead carpenter / kind of admin office role first. And then just because I think that employee labor burden is of workers' comp and keeping a carpenter busy 40 hours a week, like that's a real thing. And I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but the goal would be, like we've mentioned, Sweener Builders, AFT Construction. I think they're both running, Sweener at least, I think he has probably 40 to 50 really artisans and craftsmen that he employs full time, and they have careers and I think retirement accounts, and I think they, from what I can tell, I mean, I've never worked for them, but it's like they have a pretty high retainage rate on their employees, and they love coming to work. And so that's the big picture goal.
Love that.
But no, the next initial steps are, just kind of keep chipping away at getting the financials really dialed in. And then I've been thinking about this a lot too, like even just as far as ideal projects, I would, if somebody knocked on my office door right now and said, "Hey, will you build us a $5 million custom home?" I would probably say yes. I don't know if I should say yes.
Yeah, you probably would.
But I'm really trying to spend a lot of time thinking about, like, hey, how do we master the powder bath? Then how do we master the kitchen? How do we master the basement?
It's good.
How do we, and then like just kind of get these things on autopilot, so to speak, and then just kind of keep leveling up.
Building from there. It's good.
Yeah.
I like a lot of what I'm hearing there. It's very focused. It's not inward focused. It's very much outer focused on serving. It's very much outer focused on the team and the future idea of more team members and taking great care of them. And there's no doubt that there's a direct correlation that if you're doing that and you're doing well by your employees, you're doing well by your clients, the rest of it will take care of itself. We sometimes get it twisted where it's a little bit more, I want to, and there's time and place for that. And you're putting in a lot of risk to start your business and putting a lot of work into it. But the recipe that you just gave is a recipe for success for sure.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of great examples to follow, and
love it.
So
I'm looking forward to seeing you in August at the Rise conference, live and in person.
Same. Yeah. I mean, kind of back again, we talked about just the impact of that, 1-day conference. I was like, I just, me personally, I Zoom calls and online courses, like I'm usually dialed in, but my level of engagement in a room, like,
sure,
I don't bring the tablet or the electronic device. It's usually just me and a notebook, and like my level of comprehension and understanding is
can't beat the in-person. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And if you're also listening to this and you don't have your ticket to the Rise conference, depending on when this is landing, better look it up. Go to remodelersontherise.com/rise and you'll find it. Rob, is there one other thing that you were hankering to share with the listeners today, or do you feel like we covered most everything you were hoping to share with the people?
No, I think we hit the high level stuff. I mean, there's a few other little small things, but I don't want to take away from the hopefully
main things
the main things are. Yeah. No, just really grateful. Like, I would just say that, like, I should mention my wife too. There's been multiple times. Yeah, she hears all the complaints and the successes, and she shoulders most of the risk too, in addition to me. But there's been multiple conversations where I just go like, hey, we're going to be pretty lean financially the next few months. Like, do you still want to do this? And she goes, well, are you like, she basically says, do you have job? Are there more jobs coming down the pipeline? And I go, yeah, I think so. Sometimes it's been, I think so.
Yep.
Not for sure. Yes. And she goes, keep going. She's like, we're fine. So starting with Rachel and our church, family, friends, like, we just had a ton of support, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. And I'll leave it at that.
I love it. You have a fresh perspective and fresh outlook and a fresh kind of opinion on a lot of this stuff. And it was good. That was a good interview. Did you have fun?
I did. And I think
good.
the other thing I'll say, like, just me being like a guy that's only 3 years into it, I consume a lot of podcasts in this realm. And I love hearing from the guys that are super established, like Michael Anschel, Peter Rainey, again, Jeff Sweener, Brad Levitt, like, but sometimes I'm like, I just want to ask him, I'm like, what did you feel like 2 to 3 years in? Like,
right.
Were you as stressed out as I am? So hopefully this is an encouragement of like,
perfect.
Hey, we're all trying to figure it out.
Love it. Cool. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for being just straightforward, vulnerable, and sharing some good nuggets along the way.
Hey, well, I appreciate you, Kyle, and everything you do for the industry as well. So
thank you very much.
All right,
we'll catch you later.
See ya.
See ya.